This is another method of solving a quadratic equation. It's called the square root method, and this works very well when you can form or already has a perfect square in it. But before we can use it, we have to get the perfect square term by itself. So we're going to move all this other junk, the 2, the 6, to the other side. So the first step would be to move the 6, that's the easier of the two. And if we subtract 6 from both sides, we'll get 2x minus 3 squared is equal to negative 4. Alright. And then the next step would be to divide that 2 across, since the operation connecting these two is multiplication. So that'll bring us down to x minus 3 squared is equal to a negative 2 after dividing by a positive 2. Alright, once you get down to here, you have this perfect square equal to a number on the other side. To get rid of the square, we can use this idea of square root, but we have to remember that there is this little property that if you square root a perfect square, the answer is not necessarily just what's on the inside. It's actually the absolute value of x. And by definition, that means that if x is positive, you leave it alone. If x is negative, you have to change its sign. So we're getting a positive answer and a negative answer depending on what x is. Since we don't know what x is, we're going to have to assume that it's either the positive or the negative. So when I square root both sides here, literally, square root both entire sides, we're going to have this x minus 3 all squared underneath a square root. And we'll also have a negative 2 underneath the square root. So since we have the square root of a perfect square, we have to take into account this positive and negative. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to leave out the absolute value, but we're going to make the other side a positive and a negative of the square root of negative 2. So this will take into account that it could have been either of those two answers. Alright, one problem is, well, the square root of negative 2, that's not very nice, so let's kind of change it into its proper form, since it's an imaginary number. This would be plus or minus I square roots of 2. Alright, and then the last step would be to add the 3 across. So we're going to get x is equal to a positive 3. Always put that number first. Plus or minus should end up in the middle of the expression. Plus or minus I square roots of 2. Now technically this is two answers. If you want to write out the entire thing, we would have 3 minus I square roots of 2 and 3 plus I square roots of 2. Because sometimes it's important to separate the answers away so you show each of them individually.